Now a sugar molecule looks like this, and we can draw out its structure using carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens to show where each atom goes. Notice the distinctive hexagon shape, with carbons making up most of the ring. You probably already know that animals have to breathe air to live, and that means oxygen. So maybe we can consider oxygen one of our inputs. So when you think about it, we already have both of our inputs or reactants, sugar and oxygen. Now we can write these out in words. We can also build the structures using our molecular modeling kit. We can write out the chemical formulas showing how many of each atom each molecule has, and we can also draw out the structures of each molecule. So at this point, we've established all of our reactants, all the inputs to this reaction. Now as far as the outputs, we've already seen that carbon dioxide was produced. And if you've ever paid attention to your breath on a cold day, you would know that water is also produced in animals. So let's complete all the ways that we can show our outputs or products. So here's the structures that we can build from our molecular kit, here are the molecular formulas, and here are the molecular structures as drawn. So here we can see we've completed the products side of this reaction. And we call this reaction cellular respiration. And the point here is that animal cells take in sugar and oxygen and release carbon dioxide and water. But all is not well here. So look carefully at the reaction that you see on the screen. Do you see something that might be wrong with how the reactants compare with the products? How about we count the number of atoms on each side to find out whether they match? So on the reactants side, we count 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 8 oxygens. However, in the products, we only count 1 carbon, 2 hydrogens, and 3 oxygens. And this is bad, very, very bad, because in chemical reactions we have to follow one very important rule, and that is
matter can't be created or destroyed.
Because matter can't be created or destroyed, we need to see the same number of atoms for each element on the reactant side and on the products side, and that is currently not the case. What would you have to do to the numbers of molecules in the reactants and in the products to fix this chemical reaction? Let's start by balancing carbon. In the reactant side, we count 6 carbons in our sugar, and in the product side, we only count 1 carbon in our carbon dioxide. So in the case of carbon, probably the best thing to do is to add carbon dioxide molecules to the products side until the number of carbons on both sides is equal. So now let's look at hydrogen. You might notice that the number of hydrogens on the reactant side and the product side are way off. There are 12 hydrogen atoms in the reactants, but there are only 2 hydrogen atoms over here in the products. So to balance hydrogen, it looks like we're going to have to add water molecules to the products side until the number of atoms of hydrogen on the reactant side and the products side are equal. So last of all, let's balance oxygen. Over in the reactants side, we count 8 oxygen atoms. But over on the product side, we count 18 oxygen atoms. That means that the reactants are 10 oxygen atoms short. So to balance our oxygens, all we really have to do is now add more oxygens to the reactants side until the number of oxygens on each side is equal. On the reactant side, we currently have 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 18 oxygens. While over here in the product side, we currently have 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 18 oxygens. This means that we have successfully balanced our reaction. We know this because the number of atoms of each element in the reactants is now equal to the number of atoms of each element in the products. And there's actually another way that we can prove that we balanced this reaction correctly. If we take all the molecules of our reactants, we should be able to rearrange them to create the products. So when we rearrange all the atoms, we can see that we create all of our products, which means that we must have balanced out our reaction properly. And there's one more way to write out our balanced reaction. We can use what are called coefficients to show how many of each molecule there is in this reaction. In this case, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water all have the coefficient of 6.
666.
Pick up sticks. So here's the complete balanced reaction for cellular respiration. This is how we usually see it written out. The last thing we really have to do is to consider this process at the cellular level. That means the microscopic scale. So if we picture one of the cells inside of our mealworm, we have sugar and oxygen coming into the cells. The worm consumes these. And don't forget that we have chemical energy riding inside the bonds of the sugar molecule. And coming out of this cell as waste, we have carbon dioxide and water molecules, producing useful movement energy in the process. And this whole reaction that we see taking place in the cells of organisms we call cellular respiration.